Right, so we're recording. This is video number 2 in a series which Darren and I are making, basically to show you how nature works. Now that sounds very arrogant, but it's not. It's just confidence. So we're going to help people like Brian Cox to get things right, because he's got himself in a right muddle, and we're going to sort it all out for him and show him really how the universe works, because things like biology just don't reduce to physics, and he's convinced that they do. Sorry, Brian, you're a bit wrong on that one, mate. Biology is by definition adaptable. Physics is by definition not adaptable. So it's contradiction. So if you're trying to explain biology using physics, you can't do it. And you end up with books like this, which are basically saying there's something wrong with evolution. There's something missing from it. Because if you only got physics, evolution has to happen by chance. And there's no way that evolution is happening by chance, because in the lifetime of the known universe, you wouldn't get a single protein by chance. So that's utter nonsense. So there's a big shout out to Brian. So when you get this eventually, Brian, just sit down. You're going to be in for a bit of a shock, but we'll sort you out, mate. Don't worry. Have a whiskey. So, Darren, I'd just like you to tell your story and why you're making this video here. What got you interested in this?
It's very difficult for me to put it into words, but like obviously we've discussed how we met, and you, I can't remember on what occasion you started speaking about Brian Cox's work and how there's flaws in it, but what the confidence that you showed to me in your research, saying that you want to challenge and basically get in the intellectual boxing ring with Brian Cox, the confidence that you've shown, it drew me to it.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it really did. But also, like,
it's because you can understand it as well, and you work in a level above his head that he doesn't understand yet, and you're just an ordinary guy.
Exactly. I come from. I literally left school with maybe 4 GCSEs, and that's not at A to C level. I come from a non-science background, and I'm not saying I understand all 30 years of your research, Peter, but the fundamental principles that you teach to me on the occasions we do meet up, I do get a grasp of them quite quickly.
You do, yeah.
And, yeah, and I just want to say to the audience, if you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask questions, because Peter's always willing to answer. He's that confident in his work, he can answer the majority of stuff. But and also I'd like to say to the audience that just give it a chance. If this stuff resonates with you, like it did me, like like Peter's explained to me that on a human level we resonate with truth and honesty, and it just what Peter was telling to me really sunk home and really landed within me. And I'd just like to say to the audience to watch the videos 2 or 3 times, and if you have any questions, just ask them, and we'll be both willing to answer them.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thanks a lot for that, Darren. It's just important to state there is nothing wrong with any of the physics that Brian Cox is talking about. There's nothing wrong with it at all. What's wrong is that the physics doesn't explain nature, the solar system, a molecule, a snowflake, or a human being. That's what's wrong, and it's never going to. Yeah. So you've got to change your mind about the whole thing and replace physics with mathematics underneath physics, and physics is the first set of simple laws which explain uniformity. So they explain a raindrop, which is a uniform sphere, but not the snowflake. That's gone over into complexity. Now that can be explained by a combination of chaos and physics, and that seems strange because you think that chaos, it's just going to create a mess. Well, chaos doesn't exist by itself. It always has physics working with it. And if any system has a method of conserving information, then order can build up within the system. That's how it works. Things like a snowflake, the order is not conserved, so it melts away. So it's that combination of chaos and physics working together, and it's like a fluctuation between them, and then it'll drop one way or the other, and then you get an event. And if you can conserve the information in all those events, then order builds up.
Right.
So that would be DNA at the atomic level, and at the gravitational level, it's the fact that orbits of the planets are not restricted by friction. So every time the planet goes round, it gets tugged by all the other planets, and the little tug gets transferred into the other ones, and they'll speed them up or slow them down until they all even out. Then you've got your clock.
Right.
But that's not explained by gravity, which is the physics. So that's where Brian needs a hand to show him how to separate chaos out of physics, a different set of laws which work together in a partnership that produces unpredictable behavior of classical physics, probabilistic behavior of quantum physics, and unpredictable behavior from chaos. So there you see a little triplet, and that triplet pattern we're going to show you is at the base of every single system of information and matter in the universe. So in the next video, we're going to introduce people to the map, which now shows how nature works, because at the minute there isn't one. And you would think it would be like a periodic table, which is all ordered and sorted out. And there would be another periodic table for nature. Well, there is, and we've got it. So we're going to show the audience that in the next video and put it up on the screen.
And
sorry,
even these pairs and triplets can literally be applied to everything in the universe, can't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Which and like the simplicity of it as well. Once I ingested this, I just couldn't believe how simple it was. I mentioned my mind being blown in the last video, but it still blows my mind now.
Yeah, there's a very famous quote by a physicist called John Wheeler, who said, "Surely underneath it all there is something so simple, so beautiful, that when we find it in a decade, a century, or a millennia, we'll all turn to each other and say, how could it have been otherwise? How can we have been so stupid?"
Yeah. It's amazing. And when you say them words to me, like, and it happens a lot to me when I'm speaking to you, I get goosebumps because it resonates with me deeply. But I have something else to add then. But it's
yeah. So we'll promise them. We'll show everybody the pairs and triplets.
Yeah.
So it's important to show you that they show up in the first and simplest system in the universe, which is a proton.
That's it. Yeah.
An electron is not a system. It's a singular little speck of energy which has no volume. So it's not a system. A proton is a system of quarks, and it's got 2 up quarks and 1 down quark, a pair and a triplet. And the pair and the triplet are very important because they're the first 2 prime numbers which build all the other numbers, the composite numbers. Yeah. So it's not coincidence. The first composite number is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. The first composite element is helium, which has 4 atomic nuclei. And that's not coincidence.
Yeah, and what I've learned speaking to you as well, the coincidences just don't exist, and that's something that I find interesting as well.
It is interesting, isn't it? Yeah, because it's like all the information that we produce gets fed back into the system because we preserve it in books and videos, feed it back into other people. So we are creating a system which has a feedback loop which conserves energy, information.
Yeah.
The next feedback loop, which lets us see how we emerged from the periodic table.
Right.
What a thing to be able to say. When you look at the periodic table, you can't predict people.
Yes.
or a glass of milk, and there's everything in a glass of milk to make a blue whale, a human being, or a bat.
Wow.
And in physics, you've only got the second law of thermodynamics, which says everything goes from order to disorder. Well, clearly a glass of milk changing into a person is not going towards disorder. The milk is completely disordered.
Yeah.
But it has all the elements to make a human being. So that's one thing which lots of people have noticed about science, is that the second law of thermodynamics doesn't explain systems bringing themselves into a state of order.
Right. Okay.
So there's a cop-out in physics which says, oh, well, it's only closed systems. And that doesn't work, because the solar system is a closed system. It doesn't have, like the Earth has a energy from the sun streaming into it. But that doesn't explain how the molecules order themselves into living things. It just says you've got an energy source.
Right.
But the solar system doesn't have an energy source and still became a clock. So the old physics argument just doesn't work.
Right.
And we're prepared to get on the net and challenge everybody and say so. And that's what we need, is a showdown, a boxing match that everybody can watch. Well, that was a great video, Darren. So I'm going to leave it there, because we've done just like 15 minutes, but that was very, very good. And I think everybody's going to really appreciate that.